Have you ever stopped to think that the very first crime in human history might have happened thousands of years before writing was even invented? That bones found in caves, swamps, and deserts could still be hiding dark secrets of murders that were never solved? The story of humanity isn't just about discoveries and achievements. It is also full of eerie mysteries that still challenge science and archaeology. Imagine people who lived 5,000, 10,000, or even 400,000 years ago, brutally murdered, with their bodies preserved through time, almost as if they were waiting for us to uncover the truth. In this video, we're diving into some of the most mysterious deaths of ancient times, brutal cases that even after centuries or millennia remain unanswered. Get ready, because some of these stories will give you chills. And before we get started, I want you to think about this. Which one of these cases do you believe is the most disturbing? The mystery of Herxheim. In 1996, archaeologists made a chilling discovery in the small German town of Herxheim. A mass grave holding the bones of around 500 people was unearthed. But the most shocking part wasn't just the sheer number of remains, it was the condition they were found in. Many of the bones had cut marks, showing clear signs of being skinned or even boiled, as if parts of the bodies were used in disturbing rituals. To make it worse, some skulls had been reshaped into bowls, immediately raising suspicions of ritual cannibalism. What's even stranger, there were no signs of war, no weapons, no arrows, just human remains deliberately manipulated in ways that remain a mystery. Who did this? A cult? An entire community devoted to ritual sacrifice? To this day, archaeologists don't have a clear answer. Herxheim stands as one of the greatest enigmas of prehistory, a place where hundreds were killed in ritualistic fashion and nobody knows why. The mass execution of Lasinja. In 2007, during excavations in the Croatian village of Lasinja, archaeologists thought they had uncovered victims of a recent war. But the tests revealed a shocking truth. Those bodies weren't from World War II or even the Balkan conflicts. They dated back more than 6,000 years. The site contained the remains of 41 people. All of them showed signs of extreme violence, shattered bones from heavy blows, stab wounds, and evidence of collective execution. It was a scene of brutal mass killing. DNA testing revealed another twist. These people weren't local. Their genetic roots traced back to the region we now know as Turkey. That means they traveled, or were taken, over 200 miles before meeting their violent end. Why were they murdered so far from home? Were they war captives, victims of ritual killings, or part of some ancient ethnic conflict lost to history? No one knows for sure. But the Lasinja massacre remains one of the earliest and most puzzling cases of mass violence in prehistory. The Pit of Bones, deep inside a Spanish cave called Cima de los Huesos. The Pit of Bones. Archaeologists uncovered something astonishing in 1992, the remains of at least 28 individuals who lived roughly 430,000 years ago. Among them, one case stood out. A skull showed 2 identical fractures, and analysis proved these weren't accidents. They were deliberate blows, evidence of one of the earliest murders ever discovered. After being struck, the victim's body was likely thrown into the cave, where it remained hidden for nearly 500,000 years. This find is considered one of the oldest pieces of evidence of homicide in human history. But it raises chilling questions. Was this a conflict between different hominid groups? A dispute within the same community? Or the very first sign of premeditated violence among our ancestors? The Pit of Bones shows that from the very dawn of humanity, violent death was already part of our story. The Girl of Ude. In 1897, workers cutting peat in the small Dutch village of Ude made a haunting discovery: the remarkably preserved body of a teenage girl. She became known as the Girl of White. Scientists determined she was just 16 when she died, around the 1st century AD. Her body showed clear signs of violence. Part of her hair had been ripped out. She had been strangled with a cord, and she also suffered stab wounds. But the bigger question isn't how she died, but why. Was it a public execution, a ritual punishment, or even a religious sacrifice? Today, the Girl of Ude is remembered as one of the most disturbing cases in ancient Europe. Her body was so well preserved that her face still shows traces of suffering. In the Netherlands, a monument was even built in her honor, but the truth about her fate is still shrouded in mystery. Shanidar III. In the mountains of Kurdistan, northern Iraq, lies the Shanidar Cave, where archaeologists found the remains of at least 10 Neanderthals. Among them was one individual who became famous as Shanidar III. Examinations revealed he had a collapsed lung caused by a puncture wound in his ribs. The injury wasn't accidental. It appears to have been caused by a projectile weapon, something Neanderthals weren't known to use. This led scientists to believe Shanidar III may have been killed by an early modern human, possibly one of the first direct conflicts between two different human species. What caused this deadly encounter? A fight over territory, scarce resources, or just raw hostility between groups? The case of Shanidar III suggests that violent clashes between humans and Neanderthals may have started far earlier than we ever imagined, and it remains one of prehistory's most chilling mysteries. The Man of Graubal. In 1952, in a peat bog in Denmark, workers uncovered a body so well preserved it looked like he had died just a few years earlier. But tests revealed he was actually from the Iron Age, around 400 BC. He became known as the Man of Graubal. His body was incredibly intact, skin, hair, even fingerprints preserved. But what shocked archaeologists most was his cause of death. His throat had been slit so deeply the blade cut into his spine. The Man of Graubal was most likely the victim of a ritual sacrifice. Back then, Germanic tribes often offered human lives to their gods in exchange for good harvests, protection, or victory in battle. Still, some researchers believe he could have been punished as a criminal, or even chosen by his own community to die. Today, the Man of Graubal is displayed at the Moesgaard Museum in Denmark and remains one of the most famous bog mummies in the world, a reminder of how blurred the lines between faith punishment and violence once were. The Woman of La Brea Rite in the heart of Los Angeles, California, sits the famous La Brea tar pits, known for countless fossils of prehistoric animals. But among mammoths and saber-toothed cats, scientists made an unsettling human discovery: the Woman of La Brea. Found alongside the bones of a dog, she lived around 9,000 years ago. Her skull showed signs of severe trauma from heavy blows, strongly suggesting she was murdered. What is even more intriguing is her ancestry. Genetic studies suggest she had ties not only to Native American tribes, but also to populations as far away as modern-day Pakistan. This raises questions about ancient migrations and contact between peoples that archaeology still struggles to explain. The Woman of La Brea remains the oldest known murder victim in California, a haunting mystery that ties together human violence and the deep prehistory of the Americas. The Gebeline Man. In Egypt back in 1896, archaeologists uncovered an incredibly well-preserved body that became known as the Gebeline Man. Unlike the traditional linen-wrapped mummies we usually think of, this man was naturally mummified by the desert's heat and dryness. That's why his skin, hair, and even tattoos are still visible today. Modern scans, including CT imaging, revealed something shocking. This young man, just 18 to 21 years old, had been killed in a fatal attack from behind. A blade, likely a silver dagger, which was extremely rare and valuable at the time, pierced his ribs and struck vital organs. The discovery sparked debate among Egyptologists. Was this a premeditated murder, an execution, or maybe an ambush fueled by power struggles, jealousy, or territorial disputes? The most intriguing part is that silver daggers weren't common in Egypt at that time, suggesting the crime involved someone of high status or with access to rare artifacts. To this day, the Gebeline Man remains one of the oldest unsolved murder mysteries of ancient Egypt. Ötzi the Iceman. In 1991, high in the mountains between Austria and Italy, two hikers stumbled upon a discovery that would change archaeology forever: the astonishingly preserved body of a man who lived more than 5,000 years ago. He became known as Ötzi the Iceman. At first, people thought he had simply frozen to death, but later tests revealed a much darker story. Ötzi had an arrow lodged in his back, likely piercing a vital artery and killing him almost instantly. On top of that, he had cuts on his hands and bruises, clear signs of a violent struggle. Research published in 2019 suggested that in his final hours, Ötzi was on the run, constantly fleeing from enemies who were never identified. Even more mysterious is what he carried with him when he died: weapons, tools, medicinal herbs, and even a copper axe, an incredibly rare item for his time. This suggests Ötzi wasn't just some ordinary man. He may have held an important role in his community. But who was chasing him? A rival, a traitor? Or was he the victim of a larger conspiracy? The death of Ötzi remains one of the most studied and puzzling cases in modern archaeology. Georgi, the Vindolanda child. In 2012, at the Roman fort of Vindolanda in northern England, archaeologists made a tragic discovery: the skeleton of a child who lived in the 3rd century AD. The case became known as Georgi. What shocked researchers wasn't just the child's death, but the way the body was found. It was buried inside the fort's walls, something strictly forbidden under Roman law. Even worse, the skeleton showed signs of violence, possibly a fatal blow to the head. Studies revealed Georgi was about 10 years old and likely had Mediterranean ancestry. This raised disturbing questions. Was Georgi an enslaved child, a victim of abuse, or the son or daughter of a Roman family that had relocated to Britain? Archaeologist Trudy Buck from Durham University pointed out that the secretive burial strongly suggests foul play. If the death had been natural, the body never would have been hidden in violation of Roman rules. To this day, nobody knows who killed Georgi or why. But the fact that the body was secretly buried proves that even within the mighty Roman Empire, dark crimes were committed in the shadows. The 2,500-year-old London victim. During excavations for a high-speed rail project in London, archaeologists stumbled upon a skeleton dating back 2,500 years. The body was found face down in a ditch, with hands tied behind the back, a haunting sight. Archaeologist Rachel Wood, who led the discovery, explained that everything pointed to a brutal execution. The individual had been discarded carelessly, buried without ritual or respect. The bound hands suggest a ritualistic killing or a form of public punishment. Another possibility is that the person was a prisoner of war or someone accused of treason within an ancient community. What makes this case even more unsettling is that there are no written records of such executions in that time or place. That means this discovery could be a missing link between archaeology and the violent practices of the pre-Roman peoples of Britain. The London victim remains a chilling symbol of the cruelty and harshness of societies we still know very little about: the Rosemarkie man. In 2016, while excavating along the coast of Rosemarkie in Scotland, archaeologists uncovered a skeleton that told a brutal story. The man, about 30 years old, lived around 1,400 years ago, and his death was merciless. His skull showed 5 massive blows, strong enough to fracture not just the head, but also the jaw and teeth. Forensic analysis revealed he was likely beaten to death in a prolonged and savage attack. Researchers believe he was deliberately tortured before dying, then discarded without care. The sheer level of violence suggests this wasn't just an execution. It may have been a warning, a punishment meant to terrify others. What's strange is that Scotland at the time was divided among small kingdoms and clans, always at war with each other. So who killed him and why? Was it revenge, betrayal, warfare, or some bloody ritual? The so-called Rosemarkie man remains one of the most shocking examples of brutality from early medieval Europe, proving that human violence has always found ways to leave its mark, even in the most remote corners of the world. Closing thoughts. As we've seen, human history is filled with dark mysteries. Bodies preserved in bogs, caves, deserts, and even hidden ditches remind us that violence has followed our species since the very beginning. From ritual sacrifices to brutal executions to murders still shrouded in mystery, these cases reveal the dual nature of humankind: the ability to create and protect, but also to destroy and kill. And the most chilling part? Even with today's advanced technology, many of these deaths remain unsolved. Who were the killers? Why did they strike? Were these acts of revenge, forgotten wars, or rituals of faith? We may never know. But one thing is for sure: every new archaeological discovery proves that the past still holds secrets powerful enough to surprise us and even haunt us. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these stories did you find the most disturbing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read what you think about these mysteries. And if you love exploring the darkest enigmas of history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon, so you won't miss the next videos about mysteries that continue to challenge both science and humanity.